And hang on, which doesn't help. Hang on 2 moments. Is everybody else ready to go?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let us.
Yeah,
Okay,
ready to go.
Good. If you want to push us live, then we can begin.
Yep, we're now live.
Great, thank you very much. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of the Thames, Basin, Heaths Joint Strategic Partnership Board. I'm Councillor Mark Brunel-Walker, and I'm the chairman. We will start straight away with apologies for absence. I can still see a few people joining, and we have quite a packed list. So do we have any apologies for absence?
Thanks, Chair. The only apologies is Councillor Keith Dibble from Rushmore.
Okay, do we have any substitutes in that case?
No substitute.
Yes. I'm Councillor Radley from Hart is usually the person, but he's working, so I generally deputise for him.
A good choice, Tim.
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much
Thank you,
indeed.
Jonathan. I'm surprised at your support.
Anybody else to offer apologies, or I think that's it, in which case we will move on to the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 18th of June. Are there any errors or matters to correct in that agenda, in those minutes?
Okay.
If not, can I have a virtual show of hands that we're happy to accept those? Excellent.
Cool.
Any to the contrary? Not seeing anything. Okay, brilliant. So we'll confirm those as a correct record. Right, we shall move on in that case to the first substantive item, which is the Strategic Access Management Monitoring and Monitoring Project update. And I believe we have Zoe on the call to lead us through this section.
Hello, yes, I'm just sharing my screen. Can everyone see that?
We can now see that.
Yeah, very good.
Brilliant. We'll start with Victoria then.
Hi everybody, thank you for coming. Welcome to the SAM project update. So we'll be covering what we've been up to over the last 6 months. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them at the end of our presentation. So either pop them in the chat or pop your hand up. So this slide is to just so that we're really clear about who we are in the Strategic Access and Monitoring team and what the role and responsibilities are and how we actually differ from Core Natural England. So with the SAM team, our role is to manage visitor access on the Thames Basin Heaths Special Protection Area and facilitate the local partnership of land managers. And we implement the practical measures of the strategic solution. So wardening, education, we're going to hear much more about education later, monitoring and communications to reduce the recreational pressure on the SPA. And any questions you can ask us are about positive engagement with community groups and visitors, and especially dog walkers, education of school children, visitor monitoring data, public events relating to nature, fire safety, conservation and community. So with Natural England, their role is government advisory body on the natural environment, and they set the policy, provide statutory advice, ensure compliance with environmental legislation, including the habitats regulations. So any questions to them will be things like policy, planning, statutory requirements, legal obligations or national guidance. So we're going to run through a little bit of background of the project if you're new to us. So here we have a map of the Thames Basin Heaths Special Protection Area, or TBH-SPA as we tend to call it, lots of acronyms there. So as you can see, the red bits are the heathland, and it's quite fragmented across the 3 counties. So that's Surrey, Berkshire and Hampshire. And it would have been much larger and less fragmented before modern development happened, like housing and other land uses. And this is a landscape that's been shaped by human intervention, whether it be grazing or removing materials for our survival, and it's been here for thousands of years. And as a result, we have several really rare special species that have adapted to live only on heathland. So it's really precious and it's disappearing at an alarming rate, especially over the most recent 200 years. So what we have left, we really need to look after. So here are our amazing 3 ground nesting bird species. So we have the Dartford warbler there at the top. So that's our resident and is here all year round and nests just off the ground in dense gorse. Then we have the woodlark on the right, bottom right. So it sings high in the sky like its better known cousin, the skylark. And arguably the favourite to observe, on the bottom left, we have the nightjar, which flies in from sub-Saharan Africa each spring and is active at night. So what do we do? So we focus our efforts on delivering this fantastic strategy developed by your local authorities in conjunction with Natural England. So we captured that everybody in the team plan, what you can see here, is that we'd like everyone in, going from the top and around, everyone in Surrey, Hampshire and Berkshire to connect, respect and protect their heathland. And we will enable this by using education, engagement and monitoring. And we deliver our 3 core messages, which are: please keep to the path, or as we say, pause on paths if it's for dog walkers. Be wildfire aware. And lastly, make use of the green space on your doorstep, which is how we describe SANGs, which are suitable alternative natural green spaces. And that's all we're asking people to do. Here's an updated infographic which gives key information like our most recent survey results, number of wardens, our key messages, and how protection is paid for by housing developments and so on. So we use these eye-catching posters at pop-ups and events to entice people to approach us with questions and want to find out more, and it's really effective. So we've got a highlights page. So before we go into the full update, these are a few snippets from each of our work areas. So with staffing and recruitment, we've had promotions extended for the project manager and senior warden until March. New roles, the data analyst and seasonals for next year, and proposed education warden, which we'll talk about more later. In terms of wardening, we've had record engagement, so over 8,000 people spoken to during the ground nesting bird season, and we're best on record with interactions per hour, so up to 7.23 in June. In terms of access to SPA land, we've got existing access agreed, and it's all agreed till June 2026 when the access agreements will be renewed. We've got formal sign-off and minor updates in progress for some of the other access agreements. Heath and Hounds, so we've got 1,946 members and 614 dog owners were engaged over the season. And we've got this new exciting initiative called Heath and Challenge, which we'll talk about more later, and this promotes wildlife-friendly dog walking. In terms of education, we've had a record year, 9,265 engagements across 240 sessions, and 76 schools are reached, which 65 of them are within the 5-kilometre buffer zone of the Thames Basin Heaths. In terms of monitoring, the bird numbers have increased, so we've got record numbers of nightjar and Dartford warbler and near record numbers of woodlark. And communications, we've got new SANG promotion format performed well on social media, and also video content to alleviate standard of social media channels as well. So here's an update on what we've been up to since we last spoke to you with our team. So we've got Eloise. We're delighted to announce that Eloise joined our team in June as the new communications officer to work alongside Nikki Buckland. So she's our current communications officer. And Eloise works 3 days a week. And she also has another job working for the charity Friends of the South Downs. So she has lots of experience in landscape conservation and working with local communities. Our seasonal wardens completed their term with us on the 19th of September. They followed, this was following a 1-week extension to assist with sign removal. So their contribution made this the most successful season for visitor engagement, and we thank them for their dedication, and we'll present wardening statistics in the next section. Recruitment for next year's seasonal wardens is well underway. So roles are being advertised externally until mid-December. So 14th of December is the closing date, with interviews in January and a contract period from the 16th of February to the 18th of September 2026. So as before, we'll extend the appointments by 2 weeks to allow induction ahead of the ground nesting bird season, and provide support with they'll provide support with signage and installation and removal. So please help us spread the word. So Kay is kindly putting the job advert in the chat now. Thank you, Kay. So this is what our current team structure looks like in the winter period. So we've got project manager Zoe, I'm the senior manager. Communications officer Nikki Buckland and Eloise, who I believe are on the call today. Senior warden Kay, who you'll hear from in a minute. Education officer Michael, who you'll hear from today as well. And 6 year-round wardens, including 2 Heath and Hound focus wardens. So that's Tim, Ruth, Mike, Sonia, Mandy, and Joe, and a data analyst coming soon. So we're delighted to inform members that Zoe Shorter's temporary promotion to project manager of the sound team has been extended until the end of March 2026, and Kay Fletcher's temporary promotion to senior warden has also been extended for the same period. So sadly, Mike Taylor will leave the team at the end of 2025, over 11 years of dedication to the sound project. So he's one of our year-round wardens, and he's our longest standing warden. His contribution to protecting lowland heathland and its rare species has been absolutely exceptional. So we thank him well and wish him well in the future. In terms of a data analyst, after extensive efforts, the proposal of cross-organisational model for the data analyst role is no longer viable due to unresolvable issues around governance, HR and IT security. However, permission is now in place for the role to be recruited externally by Natural England, and recruitment will begin shortly. I'll hand you over to Kay to talk about events in Heath Week.
Thank you, Victoria. So first of all, we had our annual Heath Week during the first week of the summer holidays, celebrating all things Heathland related. We had a total of 19 public engagement events, 10 of which were in collaboration with partner organisations, and we engaged face-to-face with 1,041 people during Heath Week, a similar total to last year. Notably, public awareness of the project rose significantly, with 24% of attendees already familiar with our work compared to just 14% last year. This marked increase reflects the growing reach and impact of our engagement efforts. So here's all of our events this year and some pictures, as well as our partner organisations that joined us. As you can see, we had a variety of events suited to different audiences with a wide range of interests. As you may recall from the last JSPB, in response to feedback, we trialled a new format for some Heath Week events this year by replacing single guided walks with static events offering shorter guided walks at regular intervals. This aimed to reduce no-shows and improve engagement. So the Hazley Heath History event, delivered with Hart District Council, drew 31 attendees, which was an improvement on last year's walk, but was below expectations. So we'll be reviewing this with Hart Council over winter. In contrast, the Horsell insect event, run with Horsell Common Preservation Society, attracted nearly 70 attendees, which was over double the amount the 2 walks we run usually attract, and it enabled wider engagement through offering additional interactive activities. Feedback also reflected this success, with one family commenting it was a really great layout with friendly staff and lots of things to learn about. So to manage growing attendance, we trialled a booking system for this year's roadshow at Yateley Common Country Park with Highwag. This helped reduce overcrowding and enabled more meaningful engagements, with just over 100 attendees compared to over 300 last year. Feedback was really positive, though the system did increase the workload for our comms team, and some staff felt the event could have accommodated more visitors. So we'll review both staff and attendee feedback over winter before deciding on next year's format. We will also introduce new activities this year, including a reptile trail, a pond dipping demo, and a spotting reptiles challenge, which were well received. So we're planning to introduce these again next year. We delivered our second Secrets of the Common event, focused on the heathlands around Blackbush and their history, wildlife and site management. Attendance was similar to last year at 145 people, but we did have several new partners join us this year, including Forestry England, Hampshire Police and Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust, alongside returning partners Hampshire County Council and Blackbush Heritage Trust. We'd like to do this event again next year and would love to make it even bigger, with even more land managers involved. And here's some of the lovely feedback we received from Heath Week this year. So I'll just pause briefly to give everyone a chance to read.
Just while people are reading, Guy has put up an interesting comment to either pick up at the end or pick up as you go through it, but it's an interesting observation about the balance of sustainability versus access versus people on site. Might be interesting if you can pick that one up as you go, or we can pick it up at the end.
Yeah, I think we'll just answer all questions at the end, if that's all right.
Absolutely fine.
Thank you. And in terms of other events, so to mark the seasonal change, Warden Ruth delivered 2 autumn-themed weekend pop-ups in early October, exclusively held on SANG, suitable alternative natural green spaces, to help promote their use, and they resulted in over 100 public engagements. During October, I delivered 3 Halloween events featuring a spooky spotter sheet and a brand new self-guided trail focused on autumnal wildlife. The trail was in response to feedback from last year's attendees and aimed to strengthen the educational focus of these events. And the events were also held on SANGs in each county to promote their use. Like the spring events, we advertised these events via posters on nearby SPA sites to encourage regular users to explore alternative locations and reduce recreational pressure on the SPA. And feedback confirmed this was effective, with one family, for example, at the Ambro Court SANG noting that they hadn't been to the site before but always walk on Yateley Common and saw the poster. We also trialled promotion of these events through local schools using Education Officer Michael's connections, which proved really successful. And the events resulted in a total of 257 engagements, which was similar to last year, but over 80% were a new audience. Feedback was also really positive for these events, with families praising the wildlife focus, organisation and educational value of them. And we also ran our 2 Christmas wreath making events yesterday, including one alongside a Heath and Hounds Waggy Walk, and they used natural materials gathered from across the SPA. And then on to wardening. So during our winter period, which is October to January, we hold 4 half-day strategic planning sessions, 3 with the full team and 1 with the wardening team. We review the sensitive season, identify what worked and any areas for improvement, and set priorities for the year ahead. We also conduct our SANG surveys, which will be mentioned in the monitoring section in more detail. And we also join volunteer work parties run by our partners, which provide valuable opportunities to engage with local communities, reinforce our key messages, strengthen partner relations, and also contribute directly to Heathland management. We ensure balanced support with our partners. So this year we're prioritising partners with whom we had less involvement with last winter. And then to reflect on our wardening statistics from this year's ground nesting bird season. So this table and graph shows all of our warden interactions per season, that being the 1st of March to the 15th of September, since 2022. So this data includes normal wardening and pop-ups only, so excludes any data on events or education. And as it shows, the 2025 season marked a record high for us, with over 8,300 people spoken to and an average of 2.83 interactions per hour, which is the highest to date. Public awareness also showed strong recovery, with 31% of those engaged with already familiar with the project, approaching pre-COVID levels. And also from the season, we increased our number of pop-ups due to their higher interaction rate compared to standard wardening. So we delivered a total of 95 pop-ups across the SPA this season, up from 77 in 2024 and 39 in 2023, resulting in 3,052 engagements. However, only 23.5% of attendees were already aware of the project, highlighting the continued value of these pop-ups in reaching new audiences. This season, we also focused on increasing weekend and bank holiday pop-ups at our 5 busiest SPA sites, identified through over 8 years of visitor survey data. We delivered 23 of these targeted pop-ups, resulting in 1,050 engagements with 23.6% awareness and an average of 4.6 interactions per hour, so above the season's overall pop-up average of 3.7. Given their strong performance in reaching new audiences, we plan to continue these targeted pop-ups next season. And I think I'm on to Zoe for comms.
So we've had a number of SANGs open in the last 6 months: Tighting Farm in Guildford, Brox Meadows in Ottershaw, and Benswood in East Horsley, which all now have live website pages. And we've drafted pages for Brookwood Park in Knaphill and Stanbury House in Shinfield. We provide a wide variety of content to appeal to different audiences, from heath and wildlife to our key messages, warden activity, education activity, event publicity, heath and hounds, and SANG promotion. This figure shows followers' growth on social media platforms since 2021. Followers to our Facebook and Instagram accounts continue to grow, and comms are keen to trial some social media pop-ups in the spring to encourage visitors to follow our accounts and engage with our content. X has returned to 0 as we decided not to renew the account. Moving on to this figure, which shows our reach on social media and the TBH website during the period of September 23 to September 2025. Facebook continues to be our most popular social media platform. We saw our usual expected peak in July due to Heath Week advertising. And as mentioned, we withdrew from posting to X in January of this year, hence the decline in reach. We're still considering setting up a Blue Sky account and are monitoring which of our partners are currently using it. Looking at Heath Week in more detail, it's always an extremely busy week for comms, ensuring that events are successfully advertised and that engagement continues throughout the week. During July, and especially during Heath Week, digital engagement reached its peak. From June to July, Facebook reach increased by 45%, Instagram by 81%, and website visits by 58%, demonstrating the effectiveness of targeted promotion in driving visibility and audience interaction. Our vibrant branding ensures that comms kept content identifiable and engaging throughout Heath Week, and here are some example posts. Here's an example of a recent high-performing post which reached over 7,000 accounts on Facebook. Linking event information with species sightings and eye-catching photographs taken by our wardens makes for a high-performing post. Wildfire awareness is one of our key messages, of course, so we felt it crucial to respond to summer wildfire incidents through our social media campaigns. Comms initiated a discussion around wildfire prevention with partners at the October Access Management and Monitoring Partnership, or AMP as it's initialed, meeting, which we facilitate quarterly with the TBH land managers. The discussion focused on some of the fire and rescue service statistics, what content has proved most effective online, and whether secondary schools could be targeted more proactively. We continue to share news and blogs to the website. Comms Officer Eloise interviewed Warden Tim at the end of the season with the aim of collecting content to promote the Seasonal Warden 2026 roles. As you can see here, the cows were eager to learn more about their environment. We continue to create content for Heath and Hounds Facebook group and Instagram and review monthly metrics. Facebook posts created by members have proven popular. Reels work particularly well on Instagram, especially when focused on exploring green space on your doorstep walks. On to education. Our amazing Heathlands, led by Education and Engagement Officer Michael, connects school children, teachers and local communities to Heath and wildlife through curriculum-linked activities. The programme inspires responsible behaviour, from minimising disturbance to ground nesting birds and reducing wildfire risk, to contributing to citizen science, while fostering stronger nature connections and promoting responsible visiting. By the end of October, 9,265 high-quality engagements were delivered through the education programme alone, the highest annual total since the programme began in 2019. This included 240 sessions with 116 primary-age children, and the remainder covering teacher training, secondary and sixth form talks, local group presentations, and guided wellbeing walks, marking the programme's busiest year to date. During this period, 65 schools inside the 5-kilometre buffer zone have benefited from learning about heathland and how to look after it, including messaging on pause on paths and being wildfire aware. These are a combination of on-heath and in-school sessions. The autumn term has seen a number of seasonal sessions. Children have been especially fascinated by fungi, and children have also been exploring their local heathlands with Michael and learning about species classification. On returning to the classroom, they created their very own heathland field guides, which you can see here. Within 30 minutes of heathland classification sessions ending, the teacher emailed feedback. Michael will be spending some time later talking about his work in a bit more detail. With demand for education sessions growing across the SPA, the workload now exceeds capacity for one person. There are also key areas that will need extra capacity, like working with secondary schools. And we need an additional team member to be able to focus on helping planning, delivery, and admin, plus providing sickness and holiday cover. An education warden with experience in outdoor education would be able to support the education officer when necessary, but also actively warden the SPA outside of this. An education warden would also be a positive step in succession planning. This post will be funded through existing budget reallocation, partly replacing Mike Taylor's role, who's set to leave at the end of December. We'll ask for your approval after Michael's presentation.
I'll be talking about Heath and Hounds. So Heath and Hounds is run as a private Facebook group with 1,946 members. Next slide, please. This year, during the ground nesting bird season, Heath and Hounds ran a pop-up each week and covered 86% of suitable SPA sites. So 11 pop-ups were delivered between June and October, and we engaged with over 450 people and gave out more than 240 doggy goodie bags, which include our leaflets, poo bags, and dog treats. During the nesting season, Heath and Hounds focus on sang promotion and run 3 social dog walks, and they call them waggy walks, and these occur each month. So 17 walks were run between June and October, and they're regularly fully booked with 12 dogs and their owners enjoying a social walk on a sang. So outside of the ground nesting bird season, they'll be running several nature-themed waggy walks on SPA sites. So in the past, this has really helped to strengthen the messaging about potential habitats for ground nesting birds and the need to avoid and protect these areas from disturbance. So routes are carefully chosen to showcase heathland whilst minimising impact. So they use wide paths or avoid core areas. And where possible, they've invited the site ranger to talk to participants about their sites too. So Heath and Heroes campaign continued to highlight responsible dog ownership, so that this recognises owners who follow paths, observe signage and properly dispose of dog waste. And this is put up on the social media. And as I mentioned before, the Heathen Challenge is a new event, and Heath and Hounds ran this at Wellesley Woodlands dog event in August. And this is a new engagement tool to highlight the behaviours that are required to reduce disturbance of the nesting birds. So each step in the challenge focuses on one of the points of the Good Dog Guide and allows them to discuss management tools and training techniques to help the dog owner address wildlife-friendly dog walking on the SPA. So owners had to bag and bin the dog poo, demonstrate sit and wait, call their dog back and keep paws on paths, amongst other skills to show they were SPA ready. And the aim is to celebrate those who are walking their dogs in a responsible way. And Heath and Hounds was a founding member of the South Coast Canine Access Management Partnership Group, so we call this SCAMP, and this was in 2020. And they now meet quarterly to learn how other mitigation projects are engaging with stakeholders to reduce recreational pressure and share best practice. In October, Heath and Hounds attended a SCAMP meeting hosted by Ashdown Forest Conservators. I'll hand you over to Kay for monitoring.
Thank you. So the 2025 monitoring programme delivered by the 2J's Ecology is now complete. This annual survey of Annex 1 bird species continues to build our long-term data set and marks the 23rd successive year of monitoring since 2003. The key highlights are nightjars, a record 462 territories located plus 9 estimated. So that's up from 422 in 2024. The woodlark, 224 territories located, plus 5 estimated, up from 220 in 2024, matching the previous record of 229 in 2007. Excuse me. And the Dartford warbler, a record of 691 territories located, plus 29 estimated, which is up from 590 in 2024. And this graph illustrates the average interactions per hour each month during the sensitive period from 2017 to August 2025 across the SPA, SANGs and outreach locations, including schools. June 2025 marked our highest recorded rate at 7.23 interactions, followed by July 2023, which was 5.56, and May 2025, which is 5.24. The steadily rising trend reflects increasingly strategic deployment of staff time and improved engagement outcomes. And each year between October and February, the team conducts winter SANG surveys to gather feedback on site use and inform decision making. So the team will conduct 85 one-hour surveys, including counts and interviews this winter. And so far, we've completed half of them, so we're well on track. And over to Zoe for SAM 2026.
Just hand over to Laura Hughes, actually, who has now replaced Stephen Rudd within Natural England.
Thanks, Zoe. So this is just a brief update on where we are currently at with the progress of the evaluation report. Oh, sorry, if you just skipped forward. Thank you. Thanks, Zoe. So just a reminder, there's currently a contractor called ICF running an evaluation contract. And that a reminder of the scope of that project, that's to assess the effectiveness of the existing SAM measures. And that will provide an outcomes framework, and that will provide recommendations for improvements to inform discussions and decisions around the content of an updated agreement post-July 2026. The contract continues to progress on schedule. The interviews and focus groups have been completed. The quantitative data analysis is in progress. And the draft report will be available to the working group for comments from mid-January. It will then be returned to ICF, the contractor, for amendments, with the final report available from the beginning of February 2026. So noted in the most recent JSPB officers group, there's a concern among the members of where their legal standing is once the current agreement expires in July 2026. So some suggested actions would be that the officers group meet from January 2026 to discuss and agree whether they would like to instigate a short-term extension of the current agreement and seek the JSPB board approval and issue of that short-term confirmation if that's agreed. From February 2026, suggested that the JSPB officers review the evaluation contract recommendations with a view to meeting regularly to begin and agree the process for reviewing and updating the content of the longer term agreement following July 26. Thanks, Zoe.
Okay, we also have an update on the financial forecast. In June 2025, we presented the project's 4-year financial projections as outlined in the table, adding 3.5% on each year to account for inflation and increased material costs. These projections were approved by members at the JSPB meeting held that month. Here you can see the revised forecast of project costs for your review and agreement. Natural England are assured a pay increase backdated to July 2025. However, this pay package is not yet solidified. We project an overspend of 4% against the salary budget for this financial year. Importantly, despite the variance, the overall spend remains safely within the total budget for this year. But to manage this variance, we propose reallocating funds from this year's programme spend, which we're set to underspend in, subject to your approval. As the 3.5% budget increase has not been sufficient this year, we have reforecast the 4-year financial plan, which you can see here. The revised model incorporates the current year's new salary forecast and applies a 3.5% annual increase from 2026 to 2029. If you require any further detail on any of this, please get in touch with me following the meeting. And can we please minute the members' support of these decisions and the resultant costs? I don't know whether we do that through hands or what the usual way would be.
Do you want to take any questions on that? The one that stands out for me is just looking at that programme spend.
Mm-hmm.
Councillor, we have a question from you as well.
Yeah, I can do.
Yeah, I'll wait. Tell me when you want to bring me in.
Yeah. So I think my question is just looking at the assumptions based on salary make logical sense, and the rest of it makes logical sense. It's just that drop in programme spend.
Yes. So that was, I think it was, well, it would have been last year now. We asked the board for an increased programme spend for this year in order to be able to commission the evaluation, which ICF are carrying out. But we were given, I think the agreed amount was 100 grand for that, but it's only costed about 50k. So as a result of that taking place this year, next year it will drop back down to its usual rate.
That's fine. Sorry. And I, this is only my second year on here. So yes, that's not a drop. That's actually, there was the 1-year increase and it's going back to what it was before, as opposed to what it was. Okay. Councillor Glenn, you were next.
Thank you very much. I think this is the right opportunity to say absolutely brilliant presentation, and it makes me very proud to be part of this organisation. It really does. And what is most warming are the increases in numbers of the woodlark, the nightjar, and the Dartford warbler. Now, I think that's a first in my life with this group, because there was a long period where it was static, but it's really good news to see that there's an increase, which means that what we're doing, what we're spending, who we're employing is actually doing a lot of good, which is fantastic. I don't have a problem with the money, but can you tell me why we've just made, in terms of salaries, every year it's an extra £20,000?
So that's so this year we overspent, it was by 20k with salary, or we're forecast to, because of the salary increase. And as a result, the following years, we're in line with the rest of the budget increase, which is 3.5% for inflation each year following.
Oh, I see. It's inflation that's doing that, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's why it's 20,000 roughly. Okay. And is that the same as travel?
Yes, all of them are going up 3.5% each year.
Okay, that's good planning. If we can keep it under, that's great.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm just trying to get my chat to work properly to see whose hand went up next. Councillor Vermitage.
Well, hi there, thank you. Yeah, it's just a question leading on from what Councillor Glenn was just asking on salary. So I noted that you're also going to recommend recruitment of the educational warden. So I'm assuming therefore that these numbers don't include the increase for that position, because clearly it's clear that there'd be insufficient additional additional in there, unless it's a very limited limited FTE role.
Yeah, so we have 14 FTE in the Thamestown area team allocated towards us, but Mike Taylor, our 11-year reigning warden, is leaving, and he was full-time, but over the last couple of years he's gone down to about 0.6 of an FTE. So the education warden will be mostly replacing his FTE. So we're not sure exactly what capacity of FTE we'll have left, but there is a point something left. So we'll replace him definitely 3 days a week, because that's what he is at now, and up to full time. But it depends on what the budget allows for and what the FTE allows for. As you know, we recruit seasonal wardens each year, and that's quite a flexible thing. And we don't know we allow for 4 FTE for that, but quite often we get part-timers, and we're not allowed to, discriminate against people that want to work part-time. So it can look like anything from 2.5 full-time equivalents to 4. So yeah, we'll make sure to plan within budget.
I see. So it's more of a reorganisation within the sort of the existing envelope that you've got for staffing.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Jenny, I think your hand went up next.
Yeah, I just wanted to ensure that members are aware that due to the timings of when these forecasts were amended in terms of the staffing, for the financial papers, the projections are based on the previous forecast. So we have the 770k for the current year. The 26-27 and 27-28 figures are based on forecasts that are 22k lower than presented in this paper. So it's a relatively small amount. It shouldn't make too much difference, but we'd need to rework the figures through just to check the precise implications of that. We always say the future years are based on forecasts of what we're going to get in tariff, dividend income, interest income, etc., and we tend to get more in for those than we have provided for. So I don't think it will be an issue. I just wanted to make sure that members were aware of that.
Thank you. Jonathan, your hand went back up again. Is that an old hand or a new hand?
One question at a time, because that's the best way for my brain to work. Okay. The good news item about the birds, are there other organizations, I think of, for example, the RSPB, who do annual reports or quarter reports that we should engage with to tell them what a great job we're doing? So that we get the message out there.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, we're the only ones that do it on the TBH SPA. But as mentioned in the last report, this year they're doing the nationwide Heathland birds report, and we should be hearing from that. We mentioned a little bit about that in our report actually. We should be hearing the results from that in February, I believe. I reached out to the ecologist and Natural England, who's running that from their side, and she said we should be able to see it in February. And it'll be I think that was. Oh yeah, you go. I was just going to say, I think it was last completed about 20 years ago. So I'm really excited to see what the results are and see how the TBH SBA compares to other similar sites, especially in the south on Lowland Heathland, and how we're doing in comparison. But I'm feeling pretty confident that we're going to look good because we've had this project in place now and the birds are doing really well, as you can see.
Are we unique in what we're doing here, or are there other county areas doing similar projects? Do we know?
Yeah, there are similar projects like Bird Aware Solent. There's one in Essex, I forget what it's called. Victoria, you might know. But there's quite a lot of mitigation projects and also SAM projects across the country. And we get together annually for the mitigation meetup. And I have meetings every 2 months with a few other SAM projects. But we were the first of its kind, I believe, and we are kind of the exemplar. And we are approached on a regular basis from similar projects like Ashdown Forest. And there was another one, Dorset Heaths, I believe, just this year. So we probably meet up with similar projects around 2 times a year, 1-to-1, and then in the mitigation meetups and regular meetings online to share best practice and learn from each other and talk about which monitoring is working, what works in terms of influencing responsible dog ownership and wardening techniques. Heathland Hounds meet up with SCAMP, which is, I'm not going to remember the whole acronym, but it's about access management. And comms get together with other comms teams from similar projects on a regular basis.
You know, I'd love to see something like this on Country File being run by John Craven. It's the sort of thing he'd get his teeth into if he knew about it.
Yeah, that would be great, actually. It was nice to see, I don't know if it was Country File, but Wisley Common was on with Ben Habgood a couple of years ago. That might have been Country File. I can't remember, but so the SBA has been on TV, but yeah, it would be great if we could be our project in particular. It's a good suggestion.
At your next agenda meeting, I think this should be a subject of discussion, generally.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'd agree. Actually, it's something that we can probably get some help from one of the comms teams or one of the councils to.
Yeah.
It's too good a news. It's too good news a story to not scream about it, and
absolutely.
And those bird numbers are just phenomenal. I mean, it kind of validates so much of what we do. It makes us all, to your point, incredibly proud of being the work that we're all been doing over years. Although I'm a new guy to this, but I think we should do more to scream about it.
I'm just not going to put my hand up. I talk about this at full council or at group meetings because this is a tremendous success story whilst we live in this chaos of reorganization and everybody beating their breasts about lack of money and the sort of depression that's all over the place in terms of where are we going with all of this. Like today, we've just decided that we're not going to have a mayor election. So there's a sort of chaotic background. But this organization that we all belong to, the Thames Basin Heath JSPB, has managed to move on regardless of all this stuff in the background. And I talk about it because I'm very proud of it. This is what I see my job to be, certainly on Hampshire. Okay. And so therefore we need to do more to tell people how wonderful actually you guys are. So I'll rest my case.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yes, that's great. We actually discussed how we could get on Country File and Spring Watch, but if you councillors, members can do anything to help us, I'm sure you have lots of great connections.
Yeah, sure.
It'd be really, really helpful. But we get into the local newspapers and we're occasionally on the radio, but yes, maybe we should be thinking a bit bigger and louder.
Yeah, brilliant.
Okay,
well done.
We have a few questions that have been put into the chat. I'll try and take them in the order that I saw them. Although I've seen Simon's comment at the end about Spring Watch, but I think we dealt with that one. All agree on that. Guy, first of all, raised a question earlier on about which goes back to some of the events, I think, about looking at the balance between numbers, sustainability, et cetera, et cetera. Can you pick that one up?
Yes, it's always something that comes up in our team when we're doing our strategy sessions. It's such a delicate balance between advertising and promoting and spreading awareness, and it's a very careful balance. And I know similar projects also strive to balance those two things. But as mentioned earlier in the presentation, we've used our data from visitor behaviour reports on both the SPA and SANGs, along with people counter data, to see which are our busiest sites, and we do regular pop-ups on those sites. Especially, we have a special focus this year about doing them on the weekend, as we know there's higher footfall and less regular visitors are coming, to try and engage with as many people on those high footfall sites. But internally, we have a list that we use between the wardens of all of the sites. There's about 30 something if you're not looking at triple SIs, if you're just looking at site names, 37 I think, and we prioritize those into high, medium, low based on suitable habitat, size of site, how high the footfall is, and also we change that reactively based on what the behaviour might be like on site. Some sites have a lot of antisocial behaviour or non-compliance. Overall, there's not too much antisocial behaviour, but yeah, so that's what we do internally to try and work on how our busiest sites and focus on those. But yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, Guy.
Guy, your hand's gone up. Do you want to jump in? Guy?
It's probably in the kitchen.
He's just put his hand up. Oh, are you there?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Can hear you now. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, excellent. Sorry about that, Zoe. So basically, you don't think there's a site at the moment that is kind of a red flag in terms of unsustainable footfall?
Well, Guy, as you know, we haven't had our data analyst for 2 years, but we're just about to open recruitment for that. So as a result of that, we've been collecting all this brilliant people counter data, but we haven't had any analysis done on it for 2 years. But so I couldn't tell you if any sites are red flags or alarming, but if the wardens notice that in their day-to-day, we would bring that to a team meeting, and as a result, we might say, next month, let's warden more let's spend more wardening hours at that site, focusing on busier car parks or any areas where we've had reports and that sort of thing. But no, I wouldn't say any are red flags at the moment. And in terms of balancing promotion and awareness, we also do a lot of that in social media as well. When we're advertising events, I mean, so if we're worried that an event could potentially draw in a huge audience, we won't advertise it too far online. We might advertise, this is something we've been doing more, especially this year, just putting posters up on the site or on, especially if it's a SANG site that we're doing an event on, we'll put posters up on the SBA sites to try and draw local people away from that SBA site. And I think that's worked quite well. But no, I wouldn't say we have any regular red flag sites. We just have sites that have much higher footfall, such as Horsell Common, Chobham Common, Barossa. And yeah, it changes, but we are aware of higher footfall sites and we warden more regularly to accommodate that.
Okay, thank you. Looking through the next one, Heather, who I think is subbing for Keith, has got a question. I think, can you see that in the chat?
Yeah, just having a read of that.
And then I think there's a further link that Heather's posted slightly further down as well to some legal opinion. Heather, do you want to comment on it, or are you happy for that just to be taken and answered? I'm not sure whether we can.
It's an agenda item, really, rather than a question or a comment. But I can certainly raise that now if that's the appropriate time, because I noticed it wasn't on the agenda. And so I'm Rushmore Borough Council's ecology officer. The issue that I wish to raise is one of professional technical concern, and any comment comes from that perspective. So I'm speaking in my professional capacity rather than any political persuasion. So any personal comment is my own personal perspective and not on behalf of Rushmore Borough Council. What I wish to raise to this meeting, in March 2025, the government put forward the Planning and Infrastructure Bill, and that has been moving its way through government backwards and forwards between the Commons and the Lords. It's recently come back from the Lords back to the Commons, and it's looking as though it's going to receive government assent and be passed into law in the next couple of weeks. So this is coming down the road to us. And it struck me as an item that all of the members of this meeting should be aware of, because it may not, but it may potentially have far-reaching implications for the project that we're discussing. So obviously the work that we're doing here and the purpose of the Joint Strategic Partnership Board is to effectively implement the delivery framework for Thames Basin Heaths Special Protection Area, based on SAM and SANG. The reason for that is that way back when in the past, 2005, when the SPA was first identified and selected as an SPA, the planning process ground to a halt because we were not able to ascertain no adverse effect given the precautionary principle under the current habitats and conservation of species regulations, which takes a precautionary approach. And so that precautionary approach underpins the framework that we're seeking to deliver. The reason why I think part 3 of the Planning and Infrastructure Bill is worthy of our attention is that there have been significant concerns that have been raised around the way that the Planning and Infrastructure Bill Part 3 intersects with existing environmental legislation, including the Conservation of Habitats and Species regulations that underpins the delivery framework that we're discussing today. In the link, I've sent the opinion of the Office of Environmental Protection, which is the government's own environmental watchdog. They've raised significant concerns, so I've put that link in if you wish to do your own reading and your own research. I've also put a link to David Elvin KC's legal opinion. It was a legal opinion that was commissioned on behalf of the environmental sector, so it's open to question as to whether it's biased. I want to be BBC-esque in my lack of bias. So I acknowledge that this was commissioned by environmental organisations. However, he is a KC and he is a very well-regarded legal expert in environmental law, and he has raised considerable concerns. There's been a lot of action within the environmental sector to try and raise these concerns to government, and there have been amendments that have gone through government. So some of the legal opinion that you will see here, especially from the Office of Environmental Protection, has moved on a small amount. The link to David Elvin's opinion, if you scroll down, has been updated following recent amendments, so that's worth looking at. To give some context, the reason why this is relevant to Thames Basin Heaths SPA and the delivery framework is that there's a number of ways in which Part 3 changes environmental legislation. So the idea is that it's going to streamline environmental aspects of planning, and environmental aspects of planning is open to controversy. It is slow in some aspects. It can be gold-plated. It does need revision and it does need speeding up, and we all accept that. The proposals behind Part 3 are good, and the Environmental Forum is supportive of that. It's the way that it's written raises concerns that the environmental legislation put forward may not be effective, and particularly looks as though it may be a regression of environmental protections. The reason it's a regression is that at the moment there's a lot of very detailed site-specific survey work that goes into each proposed development in relation to the environmental constraints locally. And yes, that's burdensome and it's expensive and it's lots of reports. And I read those reports and I know how brain numbing it can be to go through them. And it does need streamlining. However, what Part 3 is looking to do is to take out that scientific rigour of individual survey for individual sites and to replace it with environmental delivery plans. The idea being that there will be wider landscape scale, strategic scale, which is good, delivery plans for environmental improvements. So a developer wants to come forward, they make sure that any losses on their site are accounted for within the environmental delivery plan, and they pay into a nature restoration fund, which is managed and operated by Natural England. On the face of it, that looks fine. The problem is that you run the risk of losing environmental rigour of independent survey, and you replace that with an environmental delivery framework. And the test for that is replaced by an overall improvement test, which is a subjective test undertaken by Natural England and the Secretary of State. It's not the scientifically rigorous test of the habitats regulations. What it does is it sidelines the current mitigation hierarchy of avoid, mitigate, and only if you can't mitigate, compensate. And obviously the precautionary principle of the habitats regulations is very heavily predicated on the precautionary principle, whereby the applicant has to ascertain no adverse effect. They have to prove a negative, which is a really high bar. The Part 3 of the Planning and Infrastructure Bill takes that away. So it fundamentally takes out the underpinnings of the Conservation of Habitats and Species regulations. It takes away that mitigation hierarchy. And that for me as a professional is unnerving, and it does look like it's a regression, and that's the opinion that's been taken by David Elvin. There are other issues with it as well. That's the core one for this group. There are other issues in relation to delays, whereby the environmental delivery plan may be delivering compensation and improvements sometime potentially years after the losses have occurred, and so we may be seeing that there's a net loss of biodiversity and environmental improvement resulting. But it's that main one of the removal of the scientific rigour and the replacement with that overall improvement test and the removal of the mitigation hierarchy as well. Fundamentally, there's also potentially a risk around delivery of the environmental delivery plans, whereby Natural England will be gathering the money, delivering the projects, enforcing the projects as well. So to my mind, there may be a conflict of interest there, but I think more broadly, there's a question around the resourcing of Natural England, in that they've lost a lot of staff over recent years, and this is going to be a significant responsibility and time burden. So I wanted to raise this because the Planning and Infrastructure Bill is looking to go through to Royal Assent, as I said, in which case it's going to change the legislative framework, which the delivery framework is underpinning. The government is using the Thames Basin Heaths delivery framework as a jewel in the crown exemplar of what can be achieved with strategic delivery of environmental improvements, and we all know how successful it is and how it's working. So it's a little bit of a confused picture that on the one hand the government is promoting our project as a success, but on the other hand potentially cutting off its legislative underpinning. So I wanted to raise that to your attention for further discussion and for independent research. Thank you for listening.
Great, thank you for that. I think we take some of that offline and then talk. Zoe, did you want to come back on that? And then I've also got, so I've got Councillor Berman. Zoe, I think you're coming back directly on that point, I'm presuming?
I think that's more for further
Speed at
reading,
which
and
hand went up.
I don't know what I can say right now about that, because it's more of a natural England topic than a SAM team topic, but it's really good to be aware of that. So thank you, Heather. I just wanted to put us back on track with our presentation, because we still need to seek approval for the budget and move on to Michael's part, his education section.
Yeah. We also have a couple more questions, and then we'll try and move it through. Who was next? Councillor Burmage.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I won't dwell on it, but I do fully support what Heather was saying there. I was briefed by officers after the officer meeting. I do see that, there was an issue there here, effectively treating ecology in a similar way to that air quality is treated at the moment, and I do see problems where it's all based on cumulative impacts and long-term long-term targets. So hopefully, I think her comments will be obviously noted, and I hope potentially at the next meeting we can have further briefing on these points, and after if the royal assent has occurred at that point, what to understand what the new legislative framework means and how Natural England are working within that new framework. I did just a couple of other points I did want to raise. So again, it's going back to the point about the 2026 plus work that's going on and the potential gap we have here. I think it's really important. It's a really important point that we sort of address this now, because we're going to get to this deadline of January 2026 where the current framework effectively expires, and we're going to have a gap. I can see that. I can foresee that being a big issue in terms of planning, appeal decisions, and the ability for Natural England to put in robust justification and consultation responses while we're not operating within a framework. So I fully support the idea of an interim extension, but we do need to get a new framework agreed. And again, if we get this will be, I guess, at the June meeting or July meeting, whenever we have our next meeting, we need to make sure that comes back together, and that and actually we're not exposed in that period, because clearly that viability viability is a big issue in many of our local planning authority areas, and where there's SAM contributions being required. Obviously that's balanced against other things such as delivery of affordable housing, for example. So if we're going to stand up for those SAM rates, then we need to be able to make a robust justification for that, and that we need all the underpinning framework for the authority. So again, fully support that. The only other thing I would just very, very quickly, sorry, one other point that the officers raised with me that I wanted to bring to attention was the fact that with the local government reorganisation, we probably do need to look at bringing in shadow authorities once you have elections to those shadow authorities before the reorganisation is complete. So that and I don't know how that would actually take place. Is that something we have to agree as a board to bring in members in those new emerging shadow authorities? I thought I better raise that point because it was raised to me. So I'll leave my comments there, but I thought it was a good opportunity to raise them. Thank you.
Yeah, I think on that last point, we're going to have to figure out what that means and how we evolve. But I think we also need to figure out when those elections might actually now be and what that actually means for reorganisation. I'm going to keep us moving forward in the interest of time. I've got Jonathan and I've got Guy and I've got Liz, and then I'm going to try and move us on to the other item. So if your question isn't about this section of the agenda, just put your hand down and we'll move on. But Jonathan first, then Guy, then Liz.
My apologies for coming back. I will be really quick, and I mean it. If we need special meetings for discussing the framework, and if we need a special meeting for the PI bill, which, and I'd like to thank whoever it was that wrote the name down, who talked to us about the PI.
Heather Lewis, Rushmore Borough Council.
Thank you. It was Heather, wasn't it? That kind of threw me, Heather. Your report. We need a separate item on that at a future meeting, and if that has to be brought forward, let it be brought forward. Okay, that's what I'm going to say. Let's be flexible. Let's not wait 6 months for the usual sort of report. We need to react fast. We can have special meetings. Okay.
Agreed. Guy.
Yes, thank you. The report, first of all, excellent presentation. Thank you very much. The report referenced the visitor survey. I'd remind that in the last visitor survey at 4.10, it talked about the need for a cohesive monitoring strategy. Where are we in terms of implementation of that?
I think I'll have to get back to you on that one, Guy, because I'm not sure exactly what monitoring strategy we're talking about there.
Shall I send you the link and we'll take this offline?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, that's probably a good thing. Liz, and then we'll move on.
Thank you. And thank you to Heather for raising that issue. I just wanted to support the call for maybe extraordinary meeting or something to just cover that off. And also, I don't know, Heather, and I'm sure you probably won't be able to answer this bit, but the implications of the actual project that we've got going here and the framework that this is running on. I don't know whether Natural England has indicated at all whether that will be actually affected by the changes in the planning and infrastructure bill being proposed in the planning and infrastructure bill and the contributions going forward, because that obviously the whole project is accepted by Natural England as appropriate mitigation, etc. So are there any murmurings at all about whether or not the current structure would be acceptable against the new legislation at all?
I recommend that you speak with Bella. I see she's put her hand up. She might have a response to this.
Bella quickly, and then if not, we might have to take this offline and then bring it back for another meeting.
Yes, I think it's a sensible idea to bring it back for another meeting for a more substantive item in which, Hi, I'm Bella Jack. I'm a principal manager at Natural England in our Thames Solent area team, which sits over the Surrey, Berkshire, Hampshire area. And I oversee our sustainable development work. I think I can't comment on many of the points Heather has raised. As you can imagine, this has been dealt with nationally within Natural England. It's our strategy team who are largely involved at the moment in developing the environmental delivery plans that will sit alongside the planning and infrastructure bill. In terms of those environmental delivery plans, they are looking to build on the successes that we already have. And as I think Heather mentioned, Thames Basin Heaths is often mentioned as a big success story of where we have worked strategically to allow development to come forward whilst protecting nature and restoring nature, as we saw from the bird numbers earlier as well. Just touching on that point a little further, the initial environmental delivery plans are likely to look at nutrient neutrality. Recreational pressure isn't being talked about yet in terms of environmental delivery plans. So if it is talked about, it's likely that it would look to build on what we've already created in this space. But I think just to offer some reassurance in the short term that whatever we have and agree for the future in Thames Basin Heaths is likely to remain relevant.
Great, thank you for that. So if we crack on, get through the next sections and do all the recommendations in one go. So I think we're now moving on to the education update.
Okay, right. Hi, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. Can we all see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Right. Okay. Hi, everyone. That's the worrying bit out of the way. I'm Michael, and I'm the proud to be the project's education engagement officer. And thank you for having me along to talk about the work I do with our amazing Heathlands, which is our Heathland focused education programme. And I'm really excited to provide a little bit further insight for you all. Before I kick off properly, a little bit about me. I'm obsessed with nature. I love it. It's my favourite thing. I spend as much of my time outside as I can. I love listening to birds. I really like following butterflies around, and I'm quite often found crawling around on the floor looking for beetles and spiders. And I feel really privileged to have a job where I can share that with other people and hope to get them to think that maybe nature is worth crawling around on the floor looking for and looking after. In terms of an overview of the programme, when I was employed as the project's first education and engagement officer back, it was the very end of 2018, I think. So yeah, a little while back. And I was basically just given the brief of just coming up with a curriculum-linked, Heathland-focused education programme. So I spent lots of time talking to partners and within the Thames Basin Heaths partnership and other people just to kind of work out what I could do that would be meaningful. And this is what I've come up with. So I'm going to run through a little bit about what the point of it is, what the aims are, and run you through some examples of sessions I run, some resources that we've created, and some sort of some comments on sort of like the impact of it, and then some plans for the future. So hopefully this is all interesting. So as an overall overview, the programme is designed to meaningfully connect school children and their teachers to wildlife and their local heathlands through fun, engaging curriculum-linked activities. It's really important that it's fun. It's really important that it's engaging, especially from the children's point of view, and it's really important this curriculum-linked from the teacher's point of view. That's why they invite me into their schools or allow me to take their classes out onto local heathlands. So my main remit is around delivery in schools, but I also spend a lot of time talking to lots of local community groups, residents, about their local heathlands, and focus on connecting them to that landscape, and letting them know what it takes to be a responsible visitor. I also quite like to encourage people to kind of look a bit closer and maybe get involved in some citizen science as well. So further increasing their nature connections, which is a great thing. So as an overview, the aims, everything that I do, that we do with the project starts with nature connections. It is really important that we connect people with nature. If you are not connected with nature, you're very unlikely to care enough to want to look after it. So it starts with nature connections, and then we kind of zone in a bit on to be a bit more specific about heathland and its species. So what lives on the heathland, and a little bit about the habitat, and yeah, just how special it is and how lucky we are to have it close to where we are. Then I'll introduce the threats to heathlands, so those things that we talk about regularly. So our key project messages around avoiding disturbance of ground nesting birds, and an increasing one is the being wildfire aware. So let's look after our heathlands from that point of view. Give the children and community groups information about how they can look after it. So get them excited, get them to fall in love with it, and then say, well, look, it needs our help, and this is how we do it. And then it finishes up with empowering people, empowering the children to want to take action to look after their local heathland. And as we go through this little presentation, I've got some examples of some work that children have done to do exactly that. So yeah, so heathland is brilliant, and all sessions will contain information about how we can look after it. So going back to our key messages again, so pause and pass please, and being wildfire aware. And the aim is to have children leaving sessions inspired by their nature experiences, and they share what they've learned with their friends and their family, spreading our key messages further than just that direct interaction with the children. Key messages about responsible heathland use, and hopefully their knowledge of the ground nesting birds, so knowing about nightjars or Dartford warblers or woodlarks, will mean that if they're out with their families and they encounter a ground nesting bird sign, it adds a bit of depth to it. It makes it more three-dimensional. They'll know that, oh, I know about ground nesting birds because I've done a session on it, and it's a nightjar, and nightjar is amazing. So I'm going to help make sure that we do the right thing. The curriculum, especially at the primary level, is really open to learning outside or learning about your local heathlands. And here's just a few examples of of how Heaths session can be tied to curriculum. So it's really, really broad, and they can be delivered in the classroom via an assembly, or if the school is particularly close to a heathland, then on the heathland. But yeah, lots of opportunities to tie in with loads of different aspects of the curriculum: science, geography, history, art, English. It's pretty limitless, really. So just a reminder of why heathlands are brilliant. Home to some amazing birds. Provides a home. The habitat provides the home to all 6 of our native UK reptiles. Only Heathland can support them. Amazing invertebrates and insects, so spiders, butterflies, dragonflies, moths. Amazing array of biodiversity, incredible plants, and a lot of these animals can only live on our heathland. So if that's not motivation enough to want to look after it, because if we don't look after it, then they don't have anywhere to live. And look at all that, just that diversity, that colour, variety of species. It's amazing. So when I was starting, I initially started by identifying the target audience. So within 5 kilometres in our buffer zone of all the SPA heathlands, there are just over 220 primary schools, and 60 of those are within 1 kilometre. So I will happily work with any of those schools within that buffer zone, but I do try and prioritise the schools that are within 1 kilometre, because the reasoning behind that is that these children, the school is very close to the heathland, the children and their families live very close, so they will definitely be using it. They will definitely be using it for recreation or walking their dogs or things like that. And also in terms of access to it, if you're within walking distance, you don't need to worry about paying for transport. So it's on the doorstep. And then there's 40 secondary schools within this buffer zone as well. So there's a big audience, and at the moment it's just me. So that is quite a challenge, but it's an exciting challenge. There we go. So in terms of the numbers, so the first full year was in 2019, and since then it has been growing. It was unfortunate that, unfortunately, the arrival of the pandemic, it kind of scuppered a bit of progress, but since then it's really rebounded significantly. There is so much demand for it. There's so much excitement in local schools for outdoor learning, for learning about their wildlife and habitats, and also trying to work out how we can collectively look after it. So I will deliver sessions, as I said, in schools, on heaths, but I'll also do talks to community groups, basically anywhere that I think that I might be able to reach a new audience and get them to fall in love with their heathlands and find out a little bit more about how to look after it. So in terms of the secondary audience, it's a lot harder to specifically pinpoint elements of the curriculum. Schools will use different examining boards. So the arrival of the natural history GCSE in the future will hopefully mean that I've got a focal point where I could offer some heathland education, and that's my way into the school. But in the meantime, I'm doing conservation careers on careers days. I'm talking about conservation on our local heathlands, opportunity to meet local students, but also meet local teachers and hopefully get a relationship built off that. So lots going on, lots of engagement, lots of sessions. Just incredibly popular, and there's more demand for it, and it's growing by the day. Just thought I'd top up the engagement since it started. So that's 2019 to the end of November this year. So over 30,000 engagements, over 840 sessions, 47 sessions. So lots of people benefiting from finding out more about their local heathlands and how to look after it through the creation of the education and engagement officer role. During this same period, I have worked with 96 schools within that buffer zone. So I am chipping away at trying to work with all of them, and 38 of those are within 1 kilometre. So they're the really local ones. This year I've worked with 73 schools, so slightly more than there's an extra month's worth of data since we did the presentation and the report. 73 schools inside the buffer zone, and there were 10 just outside, but in Waverley as well, very close to our heathlands, but just outside the 5 kilometre buffer zone. So lots of schools benefiting from finding out more about their heathlands, how to look after it. So in terms of sessions, the ultimate would be, and probably the most impactful session would be as one that takes place on a local heathland. I don't have to explain what a heathland is. We are in it, so children can feel it, they can see it, they can smell it, they know exactly what it is when I'm talking about heathland. And a question I often ask, or I will always ask when I'm working with a group is, has anyone heard of heathland? So put your hands up. So an example, I did a session at a school that was about 400 meters away from Ash Ranges, and 250 children and teachers in the room. And I said, hands up, who's heard of heathland? And I think there were 4 or 5 hands went up. And that's near one of our biggest heathlands that was right on the doorstep. And I just basically just asked, okay, so I'm sure that, you know, I imagine that most of you do know what heathland is. So I showed them some photos. Does anyone recognize this? And then more hands went up and more hands went up. And then I said, well, your local heathlands, Ash Ranges, and pretty much everyone put their hand up. So I think heathland as a habitat, as far as habitats go, it does suffer from people not necessarily knowing that that's what it's called. So even just introducing them to heathland and that's what it is, it means that they can find out a little bit more about it, and they can kind of work out that it's fragile and how to look after it a bit better. So even just that one moment of just kind of explaining where the local heathland is really important, and it's a significant step in helping to look after heathlands. So in sessions, children become heathland scientists, and they learn about the habitat and what lives in it, and the things that cause them the habitat and the creatures harm. They also learn about what they can do to help. They see amazing things, they collect data, and from a teacher's point of view, as I said earlier, they tick off lots of curriculum boxes as they explore. And I think this first-hand experience of heathland with a person who knows what they're doing and talking about is incredibly impactful. All sessions are supported by a host of resources. What I don't want is it to be a one-off. I don't want it to be like Michael gets invited in once and then we do it and we have a good fun walk on the heathland, or he comes in and talks about it in the classroom and it's good fun and then they forget about it. I have developed lots of resources which will help embed the learning in the curriculum. So teachers will be provided with resources to help to tick off more curriculum boxes. So you could do things around food chains or adaptation or anything like that. So I'm not just going to leave the teacher to just kind of get on with themselves. They are fully supported with a whole host of resources which help to embed that learning. So I'm just going to run through a few projects that I've been working on with schools. So this on the screen, I've been working with for the past 3 years. So once a year I go in and talk to the year 4s at Potter's Gate School. So that's quite close to Caesar's Camp in Farnham. And they have produced, each year the children produce amazing projects around how to look after the heathland and what lives on the heathland as well. So again, they're learning about it, they're getting excited about it, and they are sharing about how we can help look after it. So amazing work, and the teachers are amazingly supportive. And you know, so at the end of each term I've worked with them, I'll get a whole host up to 90 different projects from the children. This is a project I work with at a school in Crowthorne, so Oakland's junior school. They each year they study habitats. And this year I went in and did a little bit of an introduction, and then we went on to the nearby Wildmoor Heath School. So the children walked from the school, and by the end of it, they were heathland experts. And then they went back to school and they have a habitats project where they learn about habitat and they design a creature that would fit in that habitat. And they were kind of really focusing on what it needs and in order to survive. And this one here is in this box, this shoebox, is the world's only day jar. So all of them were inspired by heathland, and the teacher's comment afterwards was that it was the best quality of work that children created because of the input from me and the project. So they really understood, they really got to know what the habitat was. So we're raising awareness, but we're also just giving them lots of opportunities to learn a lot more.
I'm just blown away by the amount of numbers. I was just saying I'm blown away by the numbers still. My head can't get around the amount of engagements and everything else that you've done over the last year, and cumulatively it's to everything else we're hearing on this call about numbers and engagement and everything else.
Yeah,
I think we probably need to have a proper conversation in here about how we tell this story better, because it's all just phenomenal numbers.
Oh, thank you. There is never a dull moment. I'm constantly rushing here, there, and everywhere, and It's great, and it's and I think this is why we need to have the conversations around maybe getting some additional help for this. But yeah, thank you. And it's really nice because I don't word is spreading. So I've got schools that I need to contact, but quite often it's the schools that are contacting me because teachers have shared the word with other teachers. So that's the hardest bit I've found with all of this is getting into the school in the first place. You know, it's finding that one person that thinks, oh, it's worth doing something differently or getting learning out of the classroom and changing how we do things. So yeah, if teachers or children are able to go home and talk to their parents who may be a governor for another school or something, word is definitely spreading. And that makes my job easier from the marketing point of view. It means that my days are busier and busier and busier, and that's great because I love it. So this was thank you. This was a school, St Michael's School in Sunninghill, so very close to Chobham Common. They came out and they visited Chobham, and they were inspired to want to look after it and want to help. So they designed some posters, and they got put up. Some of them got put up on the notice boards. So the county council said I could do that. So a really good opportunity to just sort of add to the messages that we have up with our signage, make them slightly more colourful, add a bit more depth to it, and it's local school children taking action to look after their local heathlands. So really exciting. So it doesn't just tick off curriculum boxes. Lots of schools will have curriculum drivers, which quite often involve like looking after the environment or making changes in the community. So it goes beyond the curriculum. And they're all amazing because you never quite know what you're going to get, and they're also beautiful and colourful, and they come up with some amazing works. I don't know if anyone's heard of the Lost Words book. So this was a book that was produced was written in response to a well-known children's English dictionary a few years ago. Obviously, finite space in a printed book. They started removing nature words. And like goldfinch and fern and things like that, and they started replacing them with technological words like broadband and modem and things like that. So the Lost Words book was written in relation to just try and encourage people to just remember nature a bit. So they've got spells and a beautiful for lots of different species, and beautiful artworks. So it's kind of the whole point is that you're writing spells, you're creating spells to basically just to sing or to chant, and it keeps these species in our minds. So I work with Wildmoor Heath School, so the year threes at Wildmoor Heath School. So we went out and had a wander on the heathland and just really got to know it. And then I went back into the school, and we talked in greater depth about the 3 ground nesting birds that we always talk about. And then they produced these amazing spells and artworks, and they got put up in the school entrance hall, so visitors, when they came and went, they could learn about these amazing birds right on the heath and on the doorstep. And I'm always looking to try and work out, well, how impactful is this? Does this have an onward benefit? And one of the wardens told me that when they were wardening on Wildmoor Heath not long afterwards, they asked them if they knew about the project or the birds, and they said, "Yep, I know all about the Dartford warbler, the woodlark, and the nightjar because my son had done a session with Michael." So it's kind of, yeah,
love that.
So it's a really nice, and so that gives me. I know that children it's resonating with children and they're remembering it, but it's really nice to have an example of it happening in the real world and the children passing it on to a parent. And for a period after that, every time I used to go to the school, every time any of the year threes would see me, they would just shout Dartford warbler, woodlark, and nightjar at me. Which as far as nicknames go, it's probably not the most catchy ones, but I would absolutely take that because I know that they've really taken the species to their heart. So this is another project with Carwood and House Community School in Camberley. So it's a special school, and I work with their 6th form students on an engagement project, and I visited them at school and talked about Heathland and how we can look after it and what lives there. And then they all came out with me, so it was 30 students. And they all came out with me to Lightwater Country Park, which is one of their nearest heathlands, to familiarise themselves with the habitat. And then they went back to school and they designed and printed leaflets to help the heath. And then they came back with me and a couple of the wardens who were helping, and they engaged with members of the public. So it was a really good opportunity for them to build their confidence in being able to speak publicly to people around something that they had genuinely cared about. And it was possibly one of the most favorite things I've ever done in terms of just anything nature related, because the children were very shy to start with and didn't really want to engage, but by the end of it they were walking up to people confidently and just thanking them for having their dog under control, and then just giving them their leaflets that they designed, and talking to them about how everyone can get the most from their visits to the Heath, but also look after them. And so that was amazing. But also what was really amazing also was the response of the local community being approached by the teenagers. Was they were amazing, and it was just such a great community thing. It was amazing. So really good. And their leaflets that they produced were all on message and really valuable. It was just a great couple of days I spent with them overall. So this is a session that I'll do with Wildmoor Heath School with the Year 2s. They will do some species sketching. So they'll learn about the heath and creatures, and they will choose one and they will draw it and they will label it scientifically. And then again, it's just raising awareness of it. And I'd worked with the children in Year 1 the previous year. So it was about 8 months between the visits. And the first question I asked was, right, what can you tell me about Heathland? Again, trying to just work out what people can remember. I was blown away. The children, so they were in Year 2. I met them in Year 1, and then in Year 2, I just said, "What do you remember about Heathland?" And they talked about it being rare, and they talked about Wildmoor Heath being their closest heath. Then someone mentioned nightjars, and I said, "Well, who can tell me anything interesting about a nightjar?" There's loads of interesting things about a nightjar. That they nest on the ground. They're nocturnal. They make weird noises. And then someone else put their hand up and they just said, because they nest on the ground, they're at risk from being people's dogs getting too close and scaring the parents away, and then they might not come back, and then the babies are in peril. And then someone else put their hands up and said, the best way to solve that is to keep to paths. So all of those key messages just repeated by some children who were about 7 years old that had learnt about it the year before. So it stuck with them, and it's amazing to know that it does stick with them. They also used words like the nightjar being camouflaged, and the fact that it was in Africa, so it had migrated. And the teacher, who wasn't their teacher the year before, was just amazed. She was blown away by the scientific words that they were using. She wasn't expecting to know about words like camouflage or migration. So it was it's good, and it just shows you the added value of doing things like this. So New Scotland Hill School is a school it's in Sandhurst, so very close to Wildmoor Heath. And I work with the 2 Year 6 environmental ambassadors, and together we presented an assembly to the rest of the school. We told the children about what lives on a heathland and how we look after it. And then at the end, we set a poster designing competition. So who can design a poster, and learning about heathland, about what they can what people can do when they visit to help look after it. And we had 120 posters, which was an amazing. I didn't expect to get anywhere near that. And me and the 2 Year 6 eco ambassadors had a very hard decision to make. We had a winner in each year group. We turned them into proper professional signs, and Wildmoor Heath was allowed to put them up there, and they've got a little bit of heathland outside the back of the gate of the school as well. So it was amazing. So yeah, local children making a difference to their local heathlands, giving the boys the opportunity to speak up in front of the whole school. It's such an inspirational thing to be involved with, so amazing. I've worked with a couple of other schools as well since then. So the posters you can see here are from St Mary's School in Byfleet, and I worked with the eco committee. So it wasn't 2 boys; it was 14 children across from nursery all the way up to Year 6, and we all presented the assembly. And it's really powerful for the children to be able to deliver those messages about how we look after heathland to their peers. It's not necessarily coming from me; it's coming from them to their peers. So I think that's more impactful. And the winners went up, got turned into proper signs, and got put up at Ockham Common to help look after the birds there. This was a project with it's a Horsell Junior School, so very close to Horsell Common, and they did a whole school poster designing competition around ground nesting birds. There were hundreds of entries. It was amazing. And we have used the one on the left that says birds in danger, stay on the path. So it's clearly a Dartford warbler on gorse. The message is amazing. And in some places where people repeatedly pull the signs down because maybe they don't like to be asked to do something, we have popped those up and they generally stay up longer. I think you've got to be an extra harsh person to pull down a poster designed by a child. Again, beautifully colourful, amazingly artistic designed, and all on message. I thought I'd share some quotes that I've had from teachers and children just to highlight some of the impact. So this was from a forest school lead at a school in Yateley, and said we had the most amazing session, and the students staff are feeling inspired to help preserve our beautiful heathland. So it's really nice to be involved with something that is exciting people about their local habitat and getting them to want to look after it. I did an assembly for the Key Stage 1 pupils at Oakland Infant School, so that's quite very close to Wildmoor Heath and Swinley Forest. And one of the bits of feedback was afterwards, I thought I should look after the heathlands. So that's a really lovely thought, and suggests that the information that they've been given has inspired them to want to look after these amazing plants and animals. This was from a teacher at a school near Wildmoor Heath again. The children have loved it, and even the parents have said how much they've learned from their children. So again, this is we haven't got a lot of evidence to suggest that children do take the messages home. I know that they do, but when a teacher has said that the parents have learned lots, that means that the messages have gone home. So that's really exciting. This is from another teacher at the same school. The children have loved their time with you. They recently took some of their teachers onto the heath and told them so much about what they had learnt, and the teachers were amazed. So it's empowering. It gives the children the opportunity to teach the teachers. And how often does that happen? So it shows that they remembered it and they were excited enough to be able to want to pass it on. And another one, this is from a school very close to Ash Ranges. Children are not usually engaged with the learning and struggle to concentrate, were enthralled and talking about it very enthusiastically afterwards. So I mean, that's the power of nature. Possibly has something to do with I get quite excited and enthusiastic about it, so maybe that helps. But yeah, definitely the power of nature in engaging children who might not necessarily be engaged or find it very difficult to fit in with the conventional curriculum. This one at Wildmoor Heath School, so near Wildmoor Heath. I was amazed when you talked about the rare birds. I can't believe we saw a Dartford warbler. So sometimes, even though there's a group of 30 of us wearing high vis, making quite a lot of noise, we do actually see some of the rare wildlife that I talk about it, and it's really exciting. Coming home with so much knowledge and then hopefully passing that on to parents. This was a selection of feedback from a school, New Scotland Hill School, so that's very close to Wildmoor Heath as well. So it's really lovely when people say children say the best day ever. Really excited when they talked about wanting to learn outside, because it is amazing to be outside, and studies have suggested that children use a richer vocabulary outside. They maybe children who are a bit quiet in the classroom come to the fore when we're outside. It's just a great place to learn. And then we saw some Dartford warblers on that occasion as well, seemingly. They talked about nightjars nesting on the ground and chirring. So again, those messages about birds nesting on the ground is sticking, it's resonating with them. And then at the end of one of the sessions, a child came up to me and said, "Thank you, I'll remember today for the rest of my life." They may well have only remembered it till lunchtime, but it was beautiful that they came up and they said that to me in the moment. So again, the power of nature. And I'm not sure if this one's my favourite or not, but it was I was out with a group of children from a school very close to Hordle Common, and one of them came up to me and said, "Do you remember me from last year?" And I said, I'm not sure, you might have to give me some more information because I work with a lot of children. And she said, "I was the one who hated nature." And I immediately remembered she didn't like anything. And she was like, "No, don't want to go near anything." And she said, "Well, I love nature now and it's because of you." So again, that's another example of how it's probably more to do with nature rather than me, but it just shows you the power of nature and maybe someone to sort of facilitating experiences. So amazing when she came up and said that. So a little bit more about what I do, slightly more broadly from the Heathland focused curriculum linked stuff. So I also do a lot of wildfire sessions. So I participate in Junior Citizen. So that is it's for year sixes. It's an annual event, and they have them at various different places around in Surrey. The children find out about how they can stay safe at a time when they're getting a little bit more freedom. And and they'll be off to secondary school soon as well. So my session focuses on the causes and consequences of wildfires and what to do if you spot one, which is get to a safe place and then dial 999. They will quite often have a poster competition, so all the children can design something that's a poster that's resonated with them. And a number of the winners in recent years have been around wildfire sessions. So something is obviously resonating, something's obviously impactful as well. I have done other wildfire sessions. So there's been Think Safe in Hart and Rushmore. So really good opportunity to work with local children around slightly different heaths, Junior Citizen in Guildford and Waverley. And I approached Surrey Fire and Rescue with an idea for a pilot session. I've always wanted to do something that involves them because I'm not a firefighter. I'm not speaking from a position of experience of what it takes to fight a fire. So what the sessions do will combine wildfire messages from me around Heathland and how we look after them, and also give the children an opportunity to talk to a firefighter about what it is, what's it like to fight a fire, and other questions that they might not get an opportunity to ask. We did a pilot. So we did work with 3 schools in the summer term and over 8 sessions. And the fire service have been so impressed with it that they have volunteered 6 days worth of staff time next year. So in the build up to the Easter holidays, when the wildfire risk starts to ramp up. So hopefully we'll be able to pick 12 schools within 1 kilometre of the Surrey Heathlands in order to be able to get the messages across. I'm hoping to do similar with the other fire services as well. Some examples of some projects. So this was Horsell Village School. They designed some posters after a session. We put them up on Horsell Common to encourage people not to have barbecues or cause any fires on the heathland. This was some posters by Caldwell School in Camberley, so very close to Barossa and Paws allotment, after a wildfire pilot session. By the time I had left the building, the teacher had come back to me and said the children have designed some posters inspired by what you've been talking about. And then 10 weeks after the session, I met a group of children that were on a pilot session, and they were able to tell me confidently all of the wildfire messages. So what causes them, how we avoid them, and what to do if we see one. So that's really good evidence that it sticks. Some other examples. So this was a school, Hale Primary Academy, so very close to Caesar's Camp near Farnham. We went out on a Heathland walk, and the children went back to school. And the head teacher, it was part of their community week. And the head teacher was very grateful, and the children just went back inspired by what they'd found out, and they created posters about how to look after the amazing habitat on their doorstep. Nearly finished. So this is a little bit. I was approached by Farnham Primary Care Network and asked if I might be able to run some wellbeing walks for the local community. So together we've worked on that, and there's a weekly walk at Caesar's Camp every Friday. I've been working with the local community centre who help promote the walks, and I can meet people that go there as well. Some really positive feedback. We do the same walk every week, and we notice nature changing as the season goes on. We don't get very far. We just notice, and so we improve our nature connections. People benefit from the well-being benefits of being out in nature, learning lots as well, and some really lovely comments. And one of the attendees was a boy who was, I think he was about 10 years old, and he wasn't able to access school apart from 1 hour of English and maths a week online for various different reasons. And our first question I asked him was, do you like nature? And he said no. By the end of, he came along for 3 weeks, and by the end, when we did a little bit of feedback, he wrote, I like looking at nature with Michael, it made me happy. Again, that's just flags up the amazing power of nature to help make people feel happy, and then obviously hopefully inspired to help to want to look after it. And nearly done. So this is something sort of like a social media. I did some social media videos last year, I think it was, just encouraging people to stop and have a look at the little things. Again, it's all designed to improve people's nature connections, and then so as I said earlier, more studies have shown that the more connected people are, the more likely they are to do the right thing. It could be that they see a sign on their heath and to look after it by not having a barbecue, or it means or keeping on a path, and they'd be inspired to do the right thing because they've maybe looked at some green elf cup fungi or green woodpecker poo or something like that, or a dungfly. So the power of little things. And just my last slide, I think is plans for the future. I want to successfully roll out the wildfire sessions with Surrey Fire and Rescue in the spring term, and then hopefully use that as a template to be able to do that across with the fire service across the other 2 counties as well. I really want to I'm keeping tabs on the natural history GCSE. Again, that's probably my best way into secondary schools en masse. I want to work with more schools. I want to make sure the project has some kind of presence in all of the schools within the buffer zone. Yes, and hopefully I will have some help at some point, because I'm probably a little bit too busy. Thank you.
I'm absolutely speechless, and I probably let that run on. I know we're going to have some time pressures on the other agenda items, but that was one of the most amazing updates I think I've had as a councillor on any project I've been involved in 25 years.
Oh, amazing. Thank you.
There's so much of that is just truly spectacular and truly amazing. And some of those comments from some of those kids are just, really just makes you want to cry. So I thank you very much on behalf of everyone. That was a phenomenal update. Beat that next time, I dare you. Jonathan, you got a question?
Right. Thank you, Mark. I'd like to echo everything you just said, and I'm sure you were tempted to close Michael down at 1 or 2 points. I'm glad you didn't. He's not lacking in enthusiasm, I'll give you that, okay?
No.
Michael, I know this is a leading question. Could I please have your email?
Of course.
Right, you can give that to me. You just send it to me, okay?
I'll say, yeah, I'll get in contact. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I'll tell you why. I know you probably don't have much time left, but it strikes me that special needs adults would be a fantastic audience for you to get them out of their various places. There is a post-19, can you write that down? Post-19 group based in Farnham, where they've taken special needs children who've finished their education, they're post-18, and they take the youngsters on into adults. It's a fantastic organization. I can't remember the person who runs it, but I'm sure you can find out. But they could organize days out with you. Okay. The second one is, speaking as a Hampshire kind of councillor, Northeast Hampshire, I'm Odium and Hook. The schools in Hampshire, Jenny Wadham can help with this, okay? We need to give you a list of our infant and junior schools in Northeast Hampshire. And that's running from Aldershot, Rushmore, Hart, Basingstoke, Borden, Farnham. So, okay, I hope, Jenny, can you help with this? Get a list to Michael Jones with a contact so that you can then email people and say, this is what we do. Do you want to send the kids?
Sounds great. I very much appreciate that. It's always nice to be pointed in a direction. So thank you.
Yeah. Especially post-19. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. I'm gonna have to move us on as much as I don't want to. So I think we've now gone through. Where are we going to next on the items? We've got. Sorry,
Yeah,
I've just lost my place.
I've got it, Mark. We just need approval of the financial update and approval to recruit an education warden.
Right. I mean, I'm happy to move the 4 recommendations, 2 to note, 2 to approve. If someone wants to second, I'm going to assume that someone has seconded that.
Happy to second.
Thank you very much. Anyone not in favour? Cool, brilliant, thank you. So that's to note, and then to approve and to approve. So thank you very much for that. Thank you for those lengthy updates. As I say, phenomenal updates, truly phenomenal. And we are now going to move on in the interests of time to item 4, I think we're on now, which is the Strategic Access Management and Monitoring Project Financial Update.
Thank you. So over to me. I'm Jenny Wadham. I'm a finance business partner at Hampshire County Council who act as the administrative body. I'm just going to share, hopefully, she says, some slides just to pull out the key points from the report. I can rattle through this quite quickly. Hopefully everybody can see that okay.
Yeah, very good.
So just things for noting this time in terms of forecast, we obviously discussed the final accounts for last year at the June or July meeting, I forget which month. So the forecast position for the current year, we are looking at net income of a little over £4 million. Most of that from tariff income. We've also got dividend income and interest income coming through, offset by around £800,000 expenditure. And that's obviously the Natural England forecast that we've just seen, plus the payments for Hampshire as an administrative body, and also for Arling Close, who will be joining us very shortly. Just worth saying, she says, the way it's presenting, I'm losing my notes on screen, which isn't helping me, but that's okay. Worth saying the bank interest receivable slightly lower this year because actually we've got £10 million sitting in a secured deposit, which will pay out next year. Dividend income, we assume at 4% return. You may well hear from Greg in a minute that actually we tend to get slightly more than that. So I think the last couple of years we've got 5%. So a relatively prudent assumption in relation to the income we are getting. I would just mention the tariff income, as we said, that fluctuates wildly from year to year. At the moment, we've actually got 1.8 million received and banked. So the rest is a forecast for the rest of the year. And that was at the end of October. Really key point is that the in-year investment income, so that dividend income, the bank interest income, is enough to fully fund the expenditure. And that's obviously what we're aiming to get to in perpetuity. Our projected assets at the end of the year, so as at end of March 2026, the maintenance fund balance we are maintaining at £2.5 million, so it will stay at that balance. The endowment fund we are expecting to increase by that £4 million net income I've just spoken about, so it would increase to a projected £28.7 million. Of that, 14 million is held in the fund investments, and that is the market value as at March 2025 when we last did the final accounts. Again, Greg from Arling Close will talk to us about the current values. £10 million that we've got held in that secure cash deposit, which is an investment we made in October this year, so in the last couple of months, and then £4.5 million that's been held as cash. The maintenance fund, start again, projected position for 3 years to March 2028. So we are looking at, this is the cumulative position, an addition of net income £10.8 million, which will be added to the endowment fund. Most of that again coming from tariff income, as we would expect, and sizable chunks from dividend income and interest receivable as well. Total expenditure over those 3 years currently projected at 2.3 million. And as we just mentioned earlier, we'll need to tweak that up slightly for the figures we saw from Natural England, but it probably gets lost in the roundings in terms of the figures we're talking about at the moment. Dividend income again assumed at 4% return. Bank interest assumed at 4% for the current year, which we use at an average rate. The agreement is that we will pay on balances held by the administrative body 0.25% below base rate. So it is likely to be dropping. For prudence, we assume about 2% long term, but actually I think, again, Greg may talk to us about the forecast for bank interest. It's likely to be above that, a prudent approach. And for all 3 of those years, we are forecasting that the investment income will be sufficient to fully fund the expenditure. So some very quick conclusions to run through. So pretty much a repeat of what we said in the previous meeting. So the financial position remains positive. We are projecting that quite sizable addition to the endowment fund this year. The net income for the next 3 years allows the contribution to the endowment fund. We've got that balance in the maintenance fund, which is roughly 3 years of expenditure. So really good prudent balance there. And the financial modelling that we do continues to give us that reasonable assurance of the long-term financial sustainability. And we obviously have to caveat it that we're looking forwards 80 odd years in the future. So we can't possibly say that with complete certainty, and we need to ensure we keep increasing the income to cover the cost of inflation, but it does look positive. And I have lost there we go, the button that says to stop sharing so that I can see everybody, and I will pause there for the recommendations or questions.
Any questions from around the room? No, sorry, I've just also lost my notes page. I'm just trying to see the recommendations. This is a notes one, isn't it?
It is.
Yes,
they're all for
they're all for
noting.
noting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are we all happy to note the update?
I can read them out to you if you want.
Yeah, if you could. I've just managed to. Oh, no, it's fine. I'm back with it. Sorry, I managed to close and then reopen the PDF. So there's a couple of the 3 recommendations on there, mainly to note the financial position for the next 3 years, the projected balance of the endowment fund and its methods are broken down into its buckets, and then the projected cash balance to the end of the 31st of March 2028. Are we happy to note those 3 the 3 recommendations in the report?
Anybody there?
I'm going to assume, as no one has said no, that we're happy to note.
Yeah.
So we will
Agreed.
move on in that case to the next section. And I'm sorry.
I feel very gratified from everybody for the hard work that we do.
Yeah. My head's still stuck on the 10,000 engagements that Michael nearly had. So I think we're all reeling from that still. Right, we're gonna move on to the next item on the agenda. And we are Jenny, that's with you again, I think, isn't it?
It's me again. Yeah, I will try and flash some slides back up on screen really quickly with the key points. It's quite a long report, this one, but actually a lot of it is just repeated from the previous report. So I'm only going to pick up on the changes, the exceptions this year. Oh, and that has not gone through to my right slide, so bear with me. There we go. Yeah, so I'll just pick out any key changes for us. So no comments we've received in the investment working group on the investment strategy or the responsible investing policy, and therefore there are no changes proposed. If members do have any comments to make on those, if they could submit them to the investment working group so that they can be reviewed, and then we'll present any changes to the next board meeting for approval as relevant. The investments held, so just a recap of what we've got in those 2 tables which are lifted from the report. A couple there, so we have what I've called the fund investments. I don't think this meets with Greg's terminology, so he may well correct me, but the investments we've got, that's the £50 million that we had invested, so that's the investment in that amount, not the market values that we saw in the other report, or that Greg will give us the update on. On the right hand side that table there, we've got the new secured deposit investment that we've made, so £10 million at 4% interest, which is maturing in October next year, and that was based on a decision originally made by the board a couple of meetings back, I think, but confirmed at the latest summer meeting that if those conditions were met, we just go ahead and invest at a minimum of 4% to make sure we get suitable interest. No pending investments as well, and as I say, the £10 million is new this year. Next slide is just looking at the balances that we are forecasting we will have available for investment. I would say, I think in the recommendations we have put it's table 3, it's not its table 5. We updated the table numbers at the last minute. I don't think I followed that through to the recommendations. But the figures that we've got here, so at the end of the current financial year, we are expecting to have £4.5 million in cash held by the administrative body. And bear in mind, that's because we've got 10 million cash sitting in the secured deposit fund. By 26-27, that will have matured, hence the cash balance is going up to just under 18 million. And if we make no further investments, we'd expect to see about 21 million pounds at the end of March 2028 in cash. The investment working group have met with Arlene Close, as we always do, about a month before the board. The advice that they had raised with us then, which investment working group are proposing is accepted by the board, is to continue as is. So we keep the investments as they stand and the remaining cash in the endowment fund as a cash balance. But obviously Greg will give us a much better update on that in the next exempt agenda item. And that is it from me. I did put the recommendations in here if that makes it easier. So I will keep those up on screen just for everybody to have a look at. And then I will take it down for any questions.
Well done, Jenny.
Yeah, indeed. It's a huge amount of work that sits behind all of this. So it's good to see this coming through. Any questions on the report or the recommendations? No, in which case I will move the recommendations that are on the screen. The difference being between that and the agenda pack is just bullet point 5, which refers to table 3. So for the avoidance of doubt, it's table 5 and appendix 3 as written on the screen in front of you. Anyone not in favour of that? Oh, I suppose, sorry, can I have a seconder first of all?
Happy to second in the absence of anyone else.
Stare you all down. Anyone not in favour of this? No, done. Brilliant. Okay.
Well done,
thank you very much indeed for that. And we just before we move to the exclusion of public and press, can we just note for anyone that's dropping off the date of the next 2 meetings that are planned on the 23rd of June and 1st of December. And I think to the various points that have been made during the course of the call, and obviously some councillors will change potentially at the next election or some representation. If we need to have additional meetings to discuss any of the items that have come up today and the change that we discussed earlier, we'll advise and slot those in as early as we possibly can. If not, I'm going to move on to exclusion of public and press, which means a number of... Oh, sorry, Jenny.
No, just to say, let me know and I'll stop the recording for the public.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to the exclusion of public and press and to resolve that the press and public be excluded from the meeting at this point during the consideration of the financial advisor's presentation, as it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3, part 1 of Schedule 12AA of the Local Government Act 1972. Can I have that seconded, please?
Councillor Gill will be happy to second.
Thank you. Anyone not in favour of the exclusion?